Hello, BookTube. I thought we'd do bookshelf number 2 of the corner bookcase, and I changed the recording angle so that you wouldn't be distracted by all the Penguin classics. There's more of you interested in that than were interested in the books that I was tediously nattering on about. So we'll start off first with the transverse books, the ones that aren't sitting properly on the shelf. And the first one of those is an old library book called Boston Days. Which is just, it's ancient, and it's just full of old stories and folklore about the city of Boston. You've got all the great old and terrible Boston intellectuals. we have Present Day Problems by William Howard Taft. This was written in 1908. And it was a gift from a friend of mine in 2005, who knows that I am the biggest and the only living Taft fan. Then we have this thing. This is Peter Cornell. I think I mentioned him before. This is Byron, a self-portrait, which Byron never did. This is Peter Cornell goes through the letters, the journals, the writings, and comes up with just creates a full portrait of Byron through his whole life. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing performance. I reread this thing all the time, and I just noticed, I don't know if you could make it out, I just noticed this picture inside the book. And I don't know if you can see clearly, but in the bottom of that dog pile are my 2 girls when they were little babies, when they were months old, and on top of them are 2 old beagles. That right there is the passage of time in Steve's world. God, that is amazing. I'll have to look at that a little more closely when we're done with the video. Oh my. Okay, all right. Then the next transverse book is 3 Weeks in Europe, and you've got the rolled up bedding and the big suitcases and all. This is from the age of steamer travel. Before airplanes, and it just follows someone on a tour of it follows the author on a tour of the continent. He was not originally thinking of being a travel writer, but he had a flair for it, and the book sold, so he kept doing it. And we have classic Reading in Bed. Can we make that out? The lighting, there we go. This is by it's a selection of essays on the glories of reading, and I have a lot of books like that, and this is one of my favorites. I love it. If you see it, I bet you would like it. And then the last of the transverse bookcases is this, The View from Lazy Point by Carl Safina, a nature book that's got a bunch of, there's a shark. I just swear that wasn't planned. It's got a bunch. It's just a reflection on the seasons and the various aspects of nature at one point in I think it's New York? Yeah, Long Island. It's a fantastic book. This guy's a great author, but this is his best book. And if memory serves, it has a very sexy blurb. Yes. I was flat out blown away. This thing is a great glittering gem of a book, certainly the first immortal work of popular natural history of the 21st century. It was a thrill and an honor to read, and when I finished it, I felt young again and full of lightning. The View from Lazy Point. You will see it in bookstores, and it's worth your time. And then we'll move on. We'll start the bookcase proper. The first one that we deal with is Yurei. You won't be able to make this out in the lighting. Let me get you the frontispiece. There we go. This is a book about Japanese ghosts. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It studies them. It's got color illustrations. It studies them and their ways and what they do and don't do. It's just fantastic. Then we have this thing here. This is John Rowland, Spindrift. And let's see here. A civilized man lives not in the present alone, but in the present with a sense of the past. Such a man is John Rowlands, who, after many years at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, fashioned a home to his liking in the rock-bound shores of Cohasset and then settled in. And this is a book about that home, and it has illustrations by the great Henry Bugby Kane. who has illustrated a number of books in this room. Just a wonderful. At the time that it was written, this was the 1950s was when the bulk of it was written. I think it was published in the 60s. 1960. Now, and at the time, books about getting away from the grind of civilization were all the rage. He also did, that same author did another book called Cache County, and it was also great. Then we have something fairly new, not old like President Taft, for God's sake. We have The Secret Lives of Bats. Let me see if I can do this without the glare. Oh, that's good enough. By Merlin Tuttle, who's the Dean of Bat Studies. And this thing came out, had I had a BookTube channel, I would have been opening the pub sheet on camera. This came out when? This was, I think, 2 years ago. 2015, October 2015. And it's not so much a natural history of bats as it is his personal history with them from when he was just a wee bat explorer digging his way into caves and trying to figure out what his local bats did different from other bats. Then we have, there are quite a few books in this room, I should warn you ahead of time, that are my profession. There are quite a few books that are collections of book essays. I consult them more often than any other kind of book. And this is one of them. This is Second Words by Margaret Atwood, who is a much, much better deadline book critic than she is a novelist. Not that that's raising the bar very high, but she's very, very good. And then we have Yours Ever by Thomas Mallon, People and Their Letters, this came out in the 2009. When Thomas Mallon wrote this, he was already calling letter writing, where you write something on a piece of paper, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and put it in the mail to its recipient. He was already calling that a dying art form. He had no idea. Now, with the worldwide prevalence of cell phones, forget it. It's never coming back. It's now a weird curiosity. And no one loved it more than I did. And even I won't revive it, even in my own private circle of friends. I think I have another sneeze going on. This next one is Lit Ed by Anthony Curtis, and this is just another collection of book reviews. I love them. They capture the year by year life of the living printed word, and they capture it in the moment like Polaroids, because a deadline book critic doesn't have time to ruminate, and doesn't have space to do it either. So it's the kind of thing I do, and I love reading other people do it. It's a knack on its own. It's a special kind of writing. The next one here is this thing. This is an old. It's Isabella Stewart Gardner and Fenway Court, and it's just who did this? The Gardner Museum printed this, and it's just there she is. It's a history of the building that later became the Gardner Museum. It's a history of Isabella Stewart Gardner and her long-suffering husband, and it's also a kind of an overview of the acquisition, the theft of the artwork that then ended up filling the museum. The Gardner Museum is a gem here in Boston, and if you ever visit, we must go there. And then a work of history looks it on the surface, but it's actually here for a reason. This is David Carradine, who I've mentioned here before. I love him. The book is called The Pleasures of the Past, and you might think from that, with the Victorian cover and all that, that this is his study of modern history. But no, no, it's largely just a collection of book reviews, of longer book reviews of his. He just noticed that that they could be grouped around a theme, so that's what he did. Modern history, modern royalty. And then we have a work of history, 102 minutes. This is by Jim Dwyer and Kevin Flynn, and it is a story about life inside the Twin Towers on the morning of September 11th. painstakingly reconstituted from eyewitness accounts and whatnot. Amazing. Amazing and harrowing. You're reading the book and you're realizing what you try to forget the rest of the time, which is that so many people in those buildings knew that they were doomed. So many people were above the impact zone. The elevators had been severed. Fires were raging throughout the building. They knew they couldn't get out. And that's what drove them to the windows. That's what drove them to jump. Plenty of the jumpers did not think they would die. They thought, who knows what they thought. They thought something. They hoped. But they weren't trying to kill themselves. Plenty of the jumpers weren't trying to kill themselves. They couldn't live inside the building anymore. They were burning alive. And there were people who tried to get out and who tried to help each other. And of course, we all know the famous stories of the handful of people who did make it out. The ones that didn't, though, the ones that knew and couldn't escape, are heart-wrenching. There's one guy who he left the building after it was struck, he left the second tower after the first tower was struck, got all the way to the lobby and was told by a security person, "This building is secure, go back to your desk. This building is secure, you go back to your desk." And he and hundreds of other people did. And then their building was hit. And he was on the phone with a relative of his, saying over and over again, "Why did I listen? Why did I come back in here? Why did I take that order? When the person had no authority to issue it, when I can leave anytime I want. Why did I do that? I doomed myself." It's tough reading, but so far in the crowded field of 9/11 books, 102 Minutes is the best one. So if you see it, you should buy it and read it. We'll move on to some less somber stuff. This is Homage to Daniel Shays. This is by Gore Vidal. It's collected essays, but it's not his big, gigantic United States. All of these essays are in that book, but this is an earlier and much shorter book that I really like. Over the course of time, I have more often taken Homage to Daniel Shays down from the shelf to reread something than I have United States. I have them both, and I treasure the bigger book into which this one goes, but I love this one too. And then the last book on the second shelf of the corner bookcase is one we've seen before, I think. It's this. It's Keith Houston's book On the Book. It's just his, see if I can, it's, there's an Audubon print. It's his history of the printed word. All its forms and social roles and whatnot. And this is fairly recent too. I don't see a pub sheet in it, and I never wrote about it. I thought I would, but I never did. This was 2016, yeah, this year. So I originally was going to write about it. I don't know why I didn't, but there you have it. Anyway, that is the second shelf of the corner bookcase, with a weird camera angle and bright morning sunlight flowing in behind me. So I'm gonna try and shut this off, and then we'll get back to our day, and we'll move on to the next shelf next time. Thank you, BookTube.